Hello there, mystery enthusiasts. EerieWay here, your trusty storyteller. Are you ready to dive into another chilling tale from the edge of reason? Buckle up, because this one's a doozy. This story is being told from the main character, so sit back and enjoy this story. It's a great one. It's called The Echoes of Guilt. Chapter 1. The Empty Nest. After 40 years of marriage, I thought I'd experienced every emotion life could throw at me. Loss, joy, fear, pride, you name it. But nothing had prepared me for the hollow ache that filled my chest when my husband passed away. Our children were grown and gone, chasing their own dreams across the country. The house felt emptier than ever without his laughter echoing through the halls or his gentle snores from the bedroom down the hall. I'd thrown myself into work, trying to fill the void left behind. I was a therapist. Specializing in grief counseling, it seemed fitting that I should be able to help others navigate their own losses while drowning in mine. But even as I guided my clients through the dark waters of mourning, I felt adrift, unable to find solid ground myself. One day, while sifting through some old boxes in the attic, I came across a photograph of our home when it was first built, a grand Victorian with intricate gingerbread trim and towering turrets. It was beautiful, but it also looked lonely. Like it was waiting for something or someone to fill its empty rooms. That's when I decided to move in. The house needed love and attention, just like I did. Maybe together we could find some peace. So I left my apartment behind and settled into this once grand, now slightly dilapidated gem, eager to start over or at least try something new. Chapter 2. Whispers in the Dark. The first whispers came on my second night in the house. I'd been working late, poring over client notes by the dim light of an old desk lamp when a soft rustling caught my ear. It sounded like pages turning, but there were no open books nearby, just the quiet ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall. I shook it off as imagination and returned to work. A moment later, the whispering came again, this time accompanied by a faint tapping like fingernails on wood. I froze, listening intently. Max, my old hound dog who'd followed me from my apartment, lifted his head briefly before flopping back down with a sigh, clearly unimpressed. Probably just mice, I muttered to myself, trying to laugh off the unease prickling my skin. But as the nights wore on, the whispers grew louder and more insistent. They seemed to follow me from room to room, growing louder whenever I tried to ignore them or distract myself with work. One night, as I lay awake listening to the hushed murmurs echoing through the house, it occurred to me that maybe, just maybe, this wasn't all in my head. Maybe there was something here, trying to get my attention. So I decided to start keeping a record of what I heard. Chapter 3. A pattern emerges. I began jotting down notes each night, recording the exact times when the whispers grew loudest and describing their pitch and cadence as best I could. After a few weeks, I started noticing patterns, certain phrases repeated at regular intervals, like mantras chanted just out of earshot. There was one phrase in particular that gave me pause. "Find her!" It echoed through the house every hour on the hour, like a haunting alarm clock. Whoever or whatever was whispering, it seemed desperate for someone to listen, to act. But who were they looking for? My mind raced with questions as I sat at my desk one evening, transcribing the latest entries in my journal. Could this entity be connected to the house's history? Perhaps a former resident seeking closure or vengeance? Or was it something more sinister, a dark force feeding off fear and desperation? I shook my head, trying to dislodge thoughts that were bordering on ridiculous. I was a therapist, not a ghost hunter. But even as I chided myself for letting my imagination run wild, I couldn't deny the chill that ran down my spine whenever the whispers grew loudest. Chapter 4. A familiar face. One evening, while rummaging through the attic in search of more clues about the house's history, I stumbled upon an old wooden trunk tucked away beneath a pile of yellowed linens. Inside, I found several dusty photo albums and stacks of faded letters tied with ribbon. As I flipped through the pages, I saw faces, both familiar and strange generations of families, posing stiffly for the camera, their eyes following me as I moved around the room. And then, tucked into a corner of one album, I found her. A young woman with dark hair and deep-set eyes that seemed to hold secrets just out of reach. She looked remarkably like one of my clients, Charlotte, a woman who'd recently started seeing me for grief counseling after the loss of her mother. Charlotte had been unusually secretive about her past, always deflecting questions with vague smiles or changes of subject. Now, staring at this photograph, I couldn't help but wonder if there was more to her story than she'd let on. I decided it was time to confront Charlotte about what I'd found, both the photograph and the strange occurrences in my own home. Chapter 5. Delving into Secrets. The following week, as we sat together in my office, I showed Charlotte the photograph. Her reaction was immediate and visceral. She gasped, her eyes widening with shock and something that looked almost like fear. That's my grandmother," she stammered, tracing the figure's face with a trembling finger. "But how did you?" I explained about finding the photo album in the attic, watching as Charlotte's expression grew more troubled by the moment. When I told her about the whispers echoing through the house at night, she paled visibly. "I know about those," she whispered, looking away from me as if unable to meet my gaze. "My mother used to talk about them, how they'd wake her up every night, begging her to find her." She thought it was just a dream, but I always wondered. I leaned forward in my chair, my heart pounding with anticipation. "Wondered what, Charlotte?" She took a deep breath before speaking again, her voice barely above a whisper. That there was something more to it, that maybe the whispers were real, and they needed our help. Chapter 6. The house's dark history. With Charlotte's encouragement, we began delving deeper into the house's history and hers by extension. We discovered that this place had been in her family for generations. Her ancestors had built it as a grand estate, meant to stand as a testament to their wealth and power. But as we unearthed old newspaper clippings and crumbling diaries, we also began to uncover a dark undercurrent running through the house's past. Stories of misfortune and tragedy followed its inhabitants like a shadow: sudden deaths, mysterious illnesses, even whispered rumors of madness. At the heart of it all seemed to be one particularly tragic event: the disappearance of a young woman named Evelyn, Charlotte's great-great-aunt. She'd vanished without a trace on the eve of her wedding, leaving behind only a cryptic letter and a trail of unanswered questions. As we pieced together the story, it became clear that Evelyn had been in love with someone else, not her intended groom, but another woman. Her family had disapproved, threatening to cast her out if she didn't comply with their wishes. In desperation, Evelyn turned to an old servant who dabbled in dark arts, begging him to curse the house so that no one would ever be happy within its walls again. The servant agreed, but with a cruel twist. He would only lift the curse if Evelyn herself could break it by finding true love and staying faithful to it. Heartbroken and terrified, Evelyn fled into the night, leaving behind nothing but shadows and whispers. Chapter 7. The Curse Unveiled. As we sat together in my office, surrounded by stacks of yellowed documents and crumbling photographs, Charlotte and I stared at each other in disbelief. Could this truly be the source of the strange occurrences in my home? Was it possible that a centuries-old curse had taken root within these very walls? I thought back to the whispers echoing through the house at night. Find her. Was Evelyn's spirit still trapped here, begging someone to help lift the curse and find her long-lost love? Or was something more sinister at work, feeding off our fears and desperation? Charlotte seemed equally shaken by our discovery. She confided in me that she'd always felt an inexplicable draw towards this house, even as a child. She'd spent countless hours exploring its empty rooms, feeling somehow connected to the place. Now, faced with the possibility that her ancestors' curse was real, Charlotte looked almost frightened. Do you think there's something we can do?" she asked softly, her eyes searching mine for answers I didn't have. I took a deep breath, considering our options. We could turn our backs on this mystery and pretend it never happened, but what if Evelyn's spirit truly needed our help? What if the whispers were real, and ignoring them only prolonged her suffering? No, we had to try something, anything, to break this curse once and for all. Chapter 8. a ritual of healing. Together, Charlotte and I returned to the house armed with newfound determination and a healthy dose of trepidation. We spent hours poring over old texts and consulting with local experts in folklore and ritual magic, searching for some way to lift the curse without causing further harm. Finally, we settled on a simple yet powerful ceremony designed to honor Evelyn's memory and release her spirit from its earthly bonds. Using items that had belonged to her, a small silver locket, an old photograph, even a lock of hair carefully preserved in one of her diaries, we created an altar in the room where she'd last been seen. As twilight fell, we gathered together around the altar, lighting candles and incense as we called upon Evelyn's spirit to join us. I spoke aloud, my voice steady despite the butterflies churning in my stomach. "Evelyn, we know you're here. We can hear your whispers, feel your presence in every room of this house. We've come tonight to help you find peace, to lift the curse that binds you and release you from this place." I paused, listening intently as the whispers seemed to grow louder, more insistent. Then, with Charlotte's guidance, I began to recite an ancient blessing, one meant to heal broken hearts and free trapped souls. "By earth and air, by fire and water, we call upon the powers that be to heal this heart, to break this curse, and set this spirit free." As we spoke the final words, a sudden gust of wind swept through the room, extinguishing the candles and sending chills racing down our spines. In the darkness, I could have sworn I heard a soft sob like the release of a long-held breath. Then, just as suddenly, the whispers were gone. Chapter 9. A new beginning. In the days that followed, the house felt different, lighter, somehow, as if an immense weight had been lifted from its shoulders. The whispers never returned, and for the first time since moving in, I slept soundly through the night without fear or dread. Charlotte seemed transformed as well, her eyes bright with new purpose. She began visiting the house more frequently, exploring its nooks and crannies with renewed curiosity, even going so far as to start restoring some of its long-neglected rooms. One afternoon, while I was helping her strip wallpaper in what had once been Evelyn's bedroom, she turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "I've been thinking," she said softly, rolling up the edge of the peeling paper like it was a map to hidden treasure. "About my own life, about all the time I've spent trying to live up to other people's expectations." She took a deep breath before continuing, her gaze fixed on some distant point only she could see. "I want to find my own happiness, like Evelyn never got the chance to do, and maybe this house can be part of that journey." As we worked side by side, peeling back layers of history one strip at a time, I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride and hope. Perhaps this place truly could become a sanctuary for lost souls, both living and dead. And perhaps in helping others find their way, Charlotte and I would also discover our own paths to healing and redemption. So tell me, dear friends, have you ever felt like something was off about your own home? Like there might be more going on than meets the eye? If you enjoyed this spooky tale, be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more spine-tingling stories from the edge of reason. You can find us on X at EerieWay. Let's chat about all things paranormal together.